Hi, I'm Cassie Burton, host of the Curiosity Junkie podcast. As you know, 2024 is an intentional year. That's right. It's my one word, intentional. And right now, I'm working on being intentional with and around my health, physical and mental wellness, kind of in general. I'm fortunate to have a very good friend who happens to be a functional nutritionist, Jamie Trevathan. I'm working with her as well as my personal doctor to really get my health at optimum state, right? That's the goal. Best year ever. Why not have optimal health? So I'm working with her. And as I'm working with her, I'm keeping a food journal, which kind of shows me a lot of different things. It's really fascinating what I'm learning about food and my body and how it reacts, as well as my mental connection to food and or why I'm eating when I'm eating. And so one of the things that we noticed within the first 2 weeks was my negative self-talk was through the roof. So I really hadn't noticed that. And I don't know if it just started showing up in this journal. I'm not really sure, but whatever. It's there. And I really want to change that. And I thought, if I'm doing it, there's no way I'm the only one doing it. There's got to be more people out there. And how can we together work on changing the narrative? So I reached out to my very dear friend who's been on the podcast before, Tracy Brady. She also happens to be a psychotherapist and lives in Texas. I met her when I lived in Texas. We became fast friends, and she's been on the podcast multiple times to talk about all the things that I'm curious about around mental health and wellness. So I reached out and I said, "Hey, Tracy, I haven't been on in a while. And this has been coming up, this negative self talk. And I would love to have a conversation around it and share some thoughts on why we do it. And then also maybe some things that we can do to move away from the negative self talk." And she agreed. So today, here is my conversation around negative self talk with Tracy Brady, who, like I said, is a psychotherapist and a very dear friend of mine. Enjoy. For me, I'm just like, I just wanted things to calm down a little bit in 2024 and kind of get back to my Cassie time and listening to Thich Nhat Hanh and all the fun stuff that I used to do that really kind of brought me peace. So that's what I'm trying to do.
For myself, it's the same. If I infuse myself with certain things, I have a different experience of life than when I don't infuse myself with those things. It's almost like food.
It, it is, yes. And I was thinking, I was talking to Jamie the other day, and I have another. Every Monday we meet, and so she was talking about the mind body connection, which I know, I know, but sometimes we forget how absolutely powerful it is. And she was saying, all this stuff. And I go, you're right. I do. I, I've just gotten so out of that connection piece where I'm like thinking about everything outside of me. So I'm just consumed with that out there and the chaos, the fixing, the chasing, the da 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 da. So I was like, when I was in Texas, I was listening to Thich Nhat Hanh. He's all about love and just being open and present and like all the things. And I was like, I was in such a good space. I stopped filling my head with his words. And now I'm like, chaos is set in again.
If you believe that it's true, any part of the idea that we create what we think about, what we put our attention on, what we consume, we create that. Why wouldn't we want to create wonderful, fun, fantastic things? And that doesn't mean that life's not going to happen, but the way we relate to it can be with vitamins, with perspective, with groundedness. It's like it's because it's not habitual and because we're conditioned to do other things and to keep our focus outside of ourselves and then react to that instead of come from a proactive, how do I want to feel? I'm going to go on an interview tomorrow. How do I want to feel about that? Well, let me practice that, put my attention on that. How does that feel? What am I wearing? What do I say? How is their face responding to me? How is my face responding? How am I feeling inside? How do I feel when I leave? Just kind of rehearse that.
Hmm.
Why don't we do that? I mean, it can't hurt.
Exactly. And I think that's why when I was in Atlanta and Texas again, I was in that space of being fully present. And I would get in my car to drive, knowing I'm getting on the highways, which are woo crazy. And I would always say, okay, we're going to do this slowly. The universe has my back. I'm going to arrive alive. And I would take off down the highway, knowing things were just going to open up for me and I wouldn't have any problems and everything was just going to flow. But I
And
intentionally made myself present in the driving moment.
and if something happens, so you have an accident, run a red light, you get a ticket, whatever, you don't get to your destination on time, you're in that state where it's all happening as it's supposed to,
Mhm.
instead of, oh shit, instead of, I'm not going to push anything away. I'm going to just be an observer. This isn't about me. We can really change our experience by that stuff. But I wasn't raised to do that. So
Me either. And yeah, I always think when I was in that place, I had a great daily practice with myself every single morning, sat down, had my coffee, ate my half a banana or my oatmeal or whatever, listened to my meditation music, journaled every day, did my gratitude, I had that great routine that was all positive energy and about being connected. And so I would go into the day feeling very present. And yeah, sure, some things would pull you out, but I was in such a good place that I could bring myself back. And I think that's what created the calm because I'm fully present. I'm not panicking. I'm not in that space where, oh, what's going to happen?
you're in reality.
Yeah. Oh,
When you're
gosh.
present, that's all that is. That's all that exists is this moment and this reality and this moment again. So when we're not there, it feels very unsafe.
Yes. Oh, gosh. What a great, when you said that, I went, oh, you're right. It's reality. Yes. And the rest of it is just like pulling us and trying to keep us away from it. Like all
It,
life, it's just like the distraction.
yeah, I don't know how it all works, but I definitely know, like you're saying, when I am calmer, when I am slower, when I am more mindful, when I am ingesting things that I believe are good for me, I just kind of create a safe space for myself instead of having to feel like everything outside of me needs to create a safe space for me.
Yes. Yeah. That's the beautiful thing. Yes. And I think with the journaling, it probably brought my attention to small things that were kind of maybe under the surface, kind of like um would just bring them to the surface. I would see them and go, oh, that is bothering me. Or, oh, interesting how I feel about that. Like that's making me angry, or that really upsets me, or whatever. Yes. And
They say
instead
that,
of ignoring it,
well, they say that when we write things down, that we can't lie
oh,
because imagine when you're writing, I really feel okay about this. Well, if that's not true, you know it. Somehow you feel that physically. And so you have to scratch that out. And it's like, well, that's not exactly right.
right. Yes, yes, yes. I would say that's very true. Yeah, because there's a lot of scratches in my book, or you in the next sentence, you're writing something that contradicts that because now the truth is starting to flow out because you're more open. The longer I write, the more things just kind of flow out. In the beginning, you're like, what am I going to write about? I'm just going to start with how I feel right now. Or I like thinking about two words that describe how I'm feeling. And then that kind of will trigger something because you have to think about it a second. Don't just go blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Then I'm like anxious. I feel anxious a lot. Well, why do I feel anxious? Yeah. What is that?
You know,
That's right. Yeah.
the whole thing about getting that thing like out of you somehow, especially where you can see it, like, oh, this was in me. Like
Mm.
you see it on the paper. This is in me. It reminds me of Kelsey when her brother died when she was 12. And so when she was 18, she got her first tattoo. And it said, "Rest in peace, Travis," on her side. And one of my friends said, "Well, she's carrying that around with her anyway. She might as well have it on the outside of her."
Oh,
And I was like, "Oh my God,
wow.
yes." That's kind of like that idea that of Freud, that we integrate. We have to, not Freud, Jung, we have to integrate stuff. It has to become a part of us. You can't just push things away.
Mm-mm.
It's a part of our experience. And so it's like with the negative self-talk stuff, it's like whatever is in the computer is not leaving the computer. The data that's been put in is there.
Mm.
And you can't erase it because there's systems going on inside there, that are for our benefit. But when we can become aware of how those systems are working or what is inside and how it affects us, and oh wow, this is why I this, or this is why I get anxious about that, you can at least have some not control, but you can have some a different way to respond to it instead of, oh crap, you know,
Mm.
here I go again, or
Yeah. Yeah, that was one thing, that's why I reached out and was like, oh, can we talk about negative self-talk? Because one of the things I found, and I was talking to Jamie about it, was so there's an app that she connects me with, and it's like you keep your daily food journal and it talks about your mood, like what was your mood before you ate and how you were feeling. So like the meal before, was it making weird things happen? Were you in a good place? Were you stressed? Were you at work? All the things. And I started noticing that I would say, oh, I'm so disappointed that I ate that. And I was like, I didn't really notice it in the moment, but when I had to go back and like, let me see, what were we going to talk about? And I was like, oh, hello.
yeah.
So I was like, Tracy, why do we do this? That's why I reached out. So I was like, okay, where's that coming from?
Mhm. So that's what I guess people call that, what the inner critic, or I think that if we think about it in a different way, we can have a different relationship with it. Because, like I said, it's not going away. It's part of the system that keeps us going. Um, but the relationship, if you can think about it as like a well-meaning friend who's offering advice, they're just trying to help you.
Right?
A well-intentioned informer that is only relying upon the past
Mm,
for predicting how things are going to be. And
yeah.
they have the ultimate goal. This thing has the ultimate goal of keeping you safe, but it assumes and presumes that something is not safe when it's kind of probably fine. But because it may look like something from the past, the whole goal here, for our bodies is to keep us alive and keep us safe. And then the whole goal for the brain, I think, to keep things the way they've always been, because we create this self, this persona, this idea of who I think I am in the world. And I mean, even if it's bad, even if it's like, well, I'm a terrible speller or something like that, that attachment to that idea of who I think I am, don't contradict me, because that brings up a lot of angst and anxiety. Well, if I'm not that, then I don't know who I am. So
Mm,
there's a lot of anxiety that goes along with anything that's not, quote, predictable. So the inner critic, or the inner thought, negative in it, I don't even like to call it negative, but this habitual, sometimes people call it their top 10 or their top 5. It's like, okay, well, these are always going to come up for me. I'm always going to think that I'm neglected, or I'm always going to think that I'm abandoned, or I'm always going to think I'm not valuable, or these are like the main ones. People have them.
yeah.
Um, anyway, I was going to talk a little bit about the amygdala. Um,
Oh, yes, yes. That was in some class I took a while back. Let's dive in. Isn't it like a little tiny
you know,
thing in your brain?
yeah, it supposedly is like evolutionarily the fear detector. Like it's the oldest part of our brain evolutionarily. And so it's designed to keep us safe. It gathers information from the environment, tries to match up what it has previously stored from the quote past or, its data, and match it up to the current environment, our current perception, whatever's going on in the moment. And like I said, if there's anything that doesn't match up, it can induce anxiety. If it does match up to the idea of, to the amygdala, I'm talking like it's a person, but there's a lot more going on. Okay. But it's too complex for me to even, talk to a neuroscientist or a neuropsychologist about it. But it's funny because if it's predictable, even if it's bad, it's like, well, that's just the way it is. Well, it's always going to be traffic on 35. I just know it. Well, okay, as long as it's predictable, it's almost like we can handle that. Well, I'm lazy, so I know I'm lazy. And so, but it's these things that go unquestioned that cause us a lot of anxiety, whether it's a quote positive or a negative or something that's predictable or unpredictable. For example, calling ourselves stupid, oh, you're so stupid. Well, there's a benefit to that. There's a benefit. If we call ourselves stupid, we don't have to feel like we failed. We're stupid. It makes sense.
It's just, we're just stupid. We're just solidifying what we know we know.
Preparing ourselves for the worst case scenario or a tragic situation. Well, there's a benefit to that. A perceived benefit, I better say that. From the amygdala's perspective, if we can do that, then maybe we can be prepared and we won't feel so despondent. Now, none of this stuff really works unless it's an actual fight or flight kind of situation. None of these things really work. But they work to make us very anxious, and they work, but we believe them. Yeah. That's the thing. If left unquestioned, we believe them. And that's why we can get so much angst and emotional anxiety and things like that from these things. Because, if I have to think that everything's going to go as it's always gone, and my brain is going to err on the side of caution, just to be, quote, safe, I'm not going to have a very happy life, because I'm always going to be notified that, oh shit, oh no, oh gosh, watch out. Look, yeah, you're that way. Oh well, what are you going to do? Nothing's going to change. And that's the whole goal, for nothing to change, because otherwise it would be unpredictable. And that feels unsafe. So it's a very logical system, but it's as they say, the brain is a terrible master, but a wonderful servant. So the good news is that we can take charge of that. It's not going to make it go away, and it's not going to necessarily change the way it works. But if you can learn some tools to, when you notice these things, what to do, I think it makes a big difference, or at least it does for me.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. And you were talking about the amygdala and like it was a person. It made me think about, I was taking the chair yoga instructor class, and they were talking about the hippocampus and the amygdala, and they called the amygdala Amy. And Amy is the keeper of all things. And so she has these file cabinets and all the things go in there. And when we go into anxiety, I love this analogy. You know me, I love an analogy, and you're like the queen of it. And when we go into anxiety, she goes into panic and she's no longer filing things where they need to go. And they're just ending up all over the office, and it's chaos. She can't file them. This is not predictable. Like you said, we're now not in any kind of organizational thought. Things are changing. She's freaking out.
And we try to figure it out. That's the issue. That causes so much suffering. You're bringing up a point about like how we attempt to mediate this situation that causes more suffering. Trying to figure it out is one. deciding that this means something about yourself, about who you really are, making a decision that this must mean something about my future, predicting what others are thinking, what they're going to do, how they're acting, how they might be in the future, what this means about a belief system. Oh well, I thought that they were honest. Now I know they're not. Making these huge jumps, trying to make things be stable and predictable, ignoring the energies of our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Getting distracted when something feels uncomfortable. These are like you talked about the body and the mind connection. These emotions we feel, or this anxiety we feel, is the body trying to let us know that there's something going on in the brain that's causing an issue, something we need to pay attention to. And you can't pay attention to it with the same brain that created it. So there is what they call a higher self, an observer. So we can tap into that. Another thing that doesn't work is trying to push things away. Stop thinking about this. What's wrong with you? And judging yourself, for having this happen or not being able to stop it, because that is perceived by the system as a threat. Oh no, we're supposed to stop doing this. Oh no, well, I'm doing something wrong. That's terrible. We got to figure this out too. it's a terrible circuitous, uh, you know, if you recognize something's going on and how you typically deal with it, that's really important to be aware of what you're doing. I think some of the things that we could talk about, some of the things that actually do work, to not necessarily, like I said, to have it go away or to stop it, but to create a different relationship with it because it's part of you.
I like that. Yes.
It's not going away.
Mm-mm.
So, first off, I guess mindfulness meditation. Everybody's heard about that. Insight meditation, scientifically proven to reduce suffering with regard to this and other things. Knowing these things are not going to stop because it's part of your processing center, which you need to survive.
And I think
Taking
that's a
charge.
big one.
Right. I mean, that you have to accept that, right? It's like if we notice that our computer is doing and processing and throwing up software suggestions because it thinks we need them, we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, oh, you're an idiot, you're stupid, what's wrong with you? It's doing its best. It's like Chat GPT. When I ask something, it doesn't, I mean, it gives me the answer, and I'm almost always not satisfied with the initial answer. But it asks me, is there something more specific about this that you would like to know, or something like that? It's fantastic. So most of the time, I think people only notice they're having, quote, negative self-talk or awfulizing or whatever when they get physically a message anxious, or because that's the cue. Oh, what's going on that the body is reacting to? The body reacts to the subconscious thoughts before we're aware of them.
Yeah.
So anytime, I'm walking down the hall and I get an anxious feeling, I stop and I say, okay, I put my hand on my body, wherever I'm feeling it. Where am I feeling it? In my chest, in my gut, in my head, in my neck, and behind my eyes. I mean, what's going on? And I'll tell you, just as a side note, body scan meditation, practice of that is really helpful to get to know the messages that your body sends and the communication back and forth between the body and the mind.
Yes. Okay. That's a good one.
So we can take charge when we notice these things are happening. Mindfulness, the non-judgmental, reactive awareness of the present moment, coming to the present moment, because oftentimes whatever's going on in our head is past or future. But more importantly, being in the moment, being in the present, being aware of the space that your body is occupying, brings you into reality or the moment. Okay, it's really simple, but when our mind is not in our when our head is not with our body and our body's not with our head, there's a sense of disconnect and a sense of things aren't safe. I mean, just think about putting your hand on a flame or something. If you're not present, it's going to take just a millionth of a second longer for the brain to react to that, which can cause harm.
Yeah. Wow.
So if you are present and that happens inadvertently, you're more likely to have the fastest response ever. So grounding yourself, paying attention to the physical space you're occupying, a meditation practice that involves returning again and again to an object like the breath, placing your attention on that has been proven to deactivate the default mode network in the brain, which is pretty self-explanatory. The default,
Right.
you get
Yeah.
yeah, default. Yeah, we're going to default. I mean, that's a safety mechanism, right? It's like a GFCI on the we'll just default, just cut it all. Blah, blah, blah. Also, I think meditation does, when you have that type of meditation where you just, no matter what happens in your experience, you just continue to return again and again and again to that home base, or that sense of the breath, or your hands, or whatever. Just pick something, right? What that also does is it creates a predictable place of safety within.
Okay.
That can be carried into your life. That's why you take a couple deep breaths when things are wacky. It doesn't it tells the body that you're safe, because you can't stand there and take a couple of deep breaths if things aren't safe. You got to run.
Right. Right. You're either in flight or you're like, oh, okay.
So, I mean, the first thing to do, I think, is to practice the feeling of the emotion in the body. And you probably know this, but there's not going to be any controlling a computer or choosing things or identifying things in a rational way when your emotions are on high alert.
No.
Because that's so powerful, and it's supposed to be powerful. But the issue is that we are so conditioned to be on edge about everything because of the relationship that we have created about ourselves, all of these belief systems about ourselves, that anything that threatens that is going to make a connection in the brain and cause us to feel anxious. You probably heard about the Dalai Lama when he was talking. Somebody asked him about how do we deal with like the negative self-talk or shame or whatever. And it's like, shame? What are you talking about? Shame of the self? And there are cultures that don't have this problem because they don't necessarily have the conditioning that we have. And so it's not like, oh, we're born with this and there's nothing we can do about it. I guess that's the point.
Right. Which is wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are things we can do.
Right.
When you were talking about the conditioning, and I do want to kind of like drive that home a little bit, because we don't realize it, but we're brought up in a family that has belief system, and we just are brought up to believe that belief system. So some of their fears, some of their whatever is going to be, pushed into our brain and make us feel what we feel. And this is safe, and this is not. And that's how the brain is, like you said, from the past, computing what's about to happen now in the present moment based on that conditioning. I just wanted to drive that home, because it really is about the past and what we've experienced that can create that anxiety, that fight or flight.
Well, yeah, right? It's concepts, concepts about things that, For example, have you heard of the lace curtain syndrome? Or
No.
so back in the day, people would put lace curtains on the front of their windows to hide everything that was going on inside. That was just a term, you know. It's like, okay, if they've got lace curtains, we know there's a bunch of problems going on. But it's like this person, this, you know, like we dress up. Well, if everything looks okay on the outside, if I got a house and a car, you know, in my culture, I must be doing okay. And you know, that's really abandoning ourselves. But yeah, to your point, that conditioning, but most people don't stop to, I don't think, stop to pay attention to, where is this coming from? Did I come out of the chute with this belief? You know, that if I don't do all my dishes before I leave the house, I'm a slob. Or, you know, I mean, just ridiculous stuff that causes us so much suffering. And the idea that it's a concept, it's we put meaning onto things, so that, and it's not, we're not intentionally doing this,
Right.
but meaning is placed onto things in order to make us feel safe and have some reference points so that we can know when something's amiss.
Mm-hmm.
If you're living in a culture where everybody is participating and there's nobody's making fun of you because you're not wearing the right shirt in third grade or something, you know, you may not create this idea that I have to match up to everybody. And there, that would be a lot of the anxiety gone out the window.
A great
If you
analogy reference because yes, it starts young.
if you hear something, say you're outside and you hear a bang or something, it's just a noise. It's just vibrations through the air into the ear canal. It's just sound. But our brain goes to concepts of what that might be.
Mm-hmm. Trying to analyze it immediately.
And that causes suffering because the default is to go to, is that a threat? That's something unpredictable. That's something that I need to investigate. That's something that I need to be aware of. And gosh, our cortisol levels are constantly being bombarded. Anyway, when you notice that you are anxious about, it doesn't even matter what, right? I would encourage people not to go to the head, or if you go to the head, come right back down to the body, because you can relate to this. It's like if you have a small child and they are super scared of the dark. I mean, there's no rational reason. You can open the closet door, you can look under the bed. There's nothing going to make them feel any differently right in that moment. They need to be comforted.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to say, go to bed, God dang it. You know, well, you know, I'll give you something to cry about. I mean, you're not going to do that. It's, this is scary. It doesn't matter why, or if there's no rational reason for it. It's scary, or it's disappointing, or whatever the emotion is.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the emotion is, we need to be with that. Be with it. Be present with it. Be compassionate, non-judgmental.
Yes.
Allow it, observe it, watch it in the body. Watch it. Just watch it. I'm here. I'm here for you. I'm here. Once that emotion is not as high, not as felt, if you've watched it, what happens to it? I mean, you can even label it tingling, pressure, hot, cold, whatever. I mean, this is a very experiential solution or approach to a very experiential issue. We feel this. We feel this. It's not just thinking. We feel it. And you have to, before you can go into, like I said, any psychological stuff, you have to take care of the body. You have to, because there's no rational thing going to happen while the body is in fear or disappointment or sadness or anxious or any of that stuff. But we can do that for ourselves.
I like that. Like bringing yourself back to the soothing part, like here.
Yeah, who got taught to do that?
No one ever, unless you're a Buddhist monk.
So, you know, whose parents, you know, didn't say, here, have a cookie, or go watch something on TV, or go play
You're
outside, or
fine.
you're
Go. Yeah,
fine. It's okay. It doesn't, yeah. Susie didn't ask you to the party. It doesn't matter. We don't like her anyway.
exactly. She doesn't
What?
matter.
How, but what about my emotions right now? How am I supposed to deal with this devastation that I feel?
Oh, go there. Just move along.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. None of us were taught that. And I don't think our parents, grandparents, et cetera, were ever taught that either.
They didn't
That we
know.
are capable of caring for ourselves if we can take that stance of a little bit of depersonalization, or move ourselves away just a little bit from being so focused and so this is me,
Mm,
to I can also be a caregiver for myself. I can go back and forth and be the person feeling, obviously, and I can also be the person present for myself. What? Sounds kind of schizophrenic, but it works. And who's
does.
supposed to be responsible for our feelings? Who's supposed to change those? Who's supposed to be there for us? Nobody can do that. But we have the capacity and the ability to do that, because we are not just our feelings. We are not just our thoughts. We are much, much greater than that. But I'm here to say, yes, you have that. You were created with that. you,
Yes.
you can be the observer, you can be the lover, you can be the non judgmental, patient, beautiful, caring
Hmm.
babysitter that you never had, or parent that you never had.
Yes. And I think one time, and you were the one that encouraged me to do it as well. We talked about having tea with yourself
Oh, yeah.
and, like having a conversation about what is going on or what might not be right, or are you okay, or whatever, or the inner child, like sitting down and just having that conversation. I think it really was powerful for me. I know you've done it. And I think it's just a good way to really get in touch with that deeper, like you said, it sounds schizophrenic, but there's there is the inner you, and then there's that mental you. And so I do think, it's really good to take a moment and connect.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. Having tea with the emotion, actually, the fear, um, the threat, whether it's sadness, loneliness, devastating fear, if you can bring it into your home, make it, give it the most comfortable seat in the house, bring it some tea, and sit there and be non-judgmental, as if you would for a friend.
Hmm.
Tell me what's going on with you. Why are you here? What do you need from me? How can I help you? Because, like I said, the idea of, which everybody does, it makes sense. When there's something feels like a threat, we want to push it away, or we want to distract from it. But that only serves to notify the brain system and the body that it's threatening.
Yeah.
Why else would you push it away?
Alert, something's wrong. Yeah.
So
Distract.
if you can bring it in, or at least have the relationship that, I mean, I was scared to death when I brought loneliness in and sat it on the couch, and I thought, well, I haven't tried this. It sounds very strange, but I will try it, because I don't know what the hell's happening here, and I'm tired of this some bitch coming and scaring me all the time. So maybe I could, maybe it'll be, I didn't even know what I would find out. What I
Okay,
found,
that's a question. Did you know it was loneliness? Had you?
I had to label it. I
Okay.
had to label it. Yeah. Yeah. I had to label that particular one. I think it's important to label any of them. And it doesn't mean that that's the only thing it can be, but for ourselves. And I asked, at the time, I said, what's going on with you? What do you need from me? And the answer I got was, I just need to feel like you're here with me.
Mm,
I need you to be with me. And I thought, I can do that.
yeah.
So when loneliness arises, I got to tell you, my first go-to still is go away. That's still my first go-to.
Yeah.
But when I remember, and I usually do, or I distract, I'll put something on the TV or I'll distract, right? But when I do offer myself the opportunity to be present with that and to become aware of that, I can I can just let it be. And I say, I'm here with you. And I'm not here with the loneliness so much as I'm here with me, but it doesn't really matter what part of me is showing up.
All right.
Just not pushing away those parts of me as if there's something wrong.
Mm.
Makes a big difference. So
Yes.
anyway, after we practice being there for ourselves, and remember that this line of conditioning we call negative self-talk is there to prevent me from failing or feeling some sort of negative emotions. It's part of you. It's part of your human creation. It's not going away. Sometimes you can say thank you for being there to point out the dangers, but I can take it from here. Like it's really, this is kind of a illogical, irrational fear that I have here. Like, somebody doesn't invite me to a party. Well, the whole I'm not worthy, I'm not approved, I'm not okay, something's wrong with me. I've always known this,
Yes, right.
it can be very hurtful. And when those things, when they come up, are dealt with in a way that is accepting and loving, you're more likely to be able to move into things that we can do that are like psychologically distancing. Like it's not necessarily me, but you can't convince yourself when you're feeling it.
No.
The one who watches these thoughts, the observer, can and should take over, but not in a like I'm defeating you, I'm defeating this negativity. More like I appreciate you coming up and trying to help me with this. I appreciate that. This is not life or death, even though it feels that way. So we deal with the emotions and the feelings through the things we've talked about, and only then can we come in and say, wow, thank you so much. I see where this comes from. I see how you're trying to help me, but let's do this a different way. Um, being the observer, being curious, asking about what else could happen except this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Figuring it out, it just never works because it's always going to find, because the brain is designed to find problems.
Yeah. It's going to default back to that.
Yeah. It wants to have something to fix, something to worry about, it wants a job. And if you say there's no job, it's going to feel very threatened, like I don't exist or something. I don't know if we talked about pronouns, using different pronouns. Like when I say when I notice, when I observe a thought that says something like, you're not wanted, I'm not wanted, I'm not wanted, right? I'm not appreciated, I'm not loved, I'm not valued. Some of those things. If you can change those to either she or he, as the case may be, she's not loved. It takes a little bit of space. It offers a little tiny bit of space. If you think about a good friend, somebody who really cares about you saying, Cassie's not lovable. Would you believe that?
No.
No way. So that's one of the things that we can do. Being curious about what else is true, like because we go to always or never. I never finish anything. I always fail, or I always go down this hole. It may seem true at the time, and so that devastating sense of powerlessness has to be dealt with on the emotional level, like we talked about. But once that is not high energy stuff, you can go and kind of ask yourself, is it possible that there's more to this? That there's another outcome, or what would make another outcome, or because a lot of times when we say cut and dry, this is how it's going to be, I know it, I've got proof in the back, it's so we don't open to something new, because that, remember, is a threat.
Mm-hmm.
That is a threat because our brains want predictability. It's a computer. It doesn't want new information. It goes, what? No, this can't be. It doesn't fit.
Yes, we already have this. No.
Yeah, we already know. We already know what's going to happen. We don't want possibility here. No. If having compassion for yourself when this is going on will help you have compassion for others, because you know how it feels to be questioning yourself. You know how it feels to want to rationalize or act on or distract from these feelings. So when you see other people doing it, you can say, oh, that's what they're doing. Maybe that's what they're going through. And so you won't maybe necessarily try to fix them or convince them that what they're excuse me, believing or feeling isn't true, because you know it doesn't work for yourself.
Be compassionate as they are in that state. Yes.
Well, if you do it for yourself, you kind of the more you do it for yourself, the more you realize that other people are going through things that they're hiding with their little lace curtains too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if other people are acting on some of this craziness, like we sometimes can, protect yourself and get out of the way. you know, but we don't have to condemn them. We don't have to condemn them.
Right.
So I don't know. There's some long-term solution kind of stuff for this. Doesn't mean it's going to go away, but is to identify like some of those top 10 things. Like if you can write down when you're not triggered, when you're in a decent space, list some of the beliefs that are driving those thoughts. For example, I'm only safe when, or if others doubt me, it means I'm a liar, or I must get thank yous for all that I do, or I don't matter. It doesn't make a difference. If my sister doesn't approve of me, I know I'm abandoned by the whole family and life, or, some of these crazy things.
Because when you first were talking about that, the top 10 things that might be driving these negative thoughts or this emotion or whatever, sitting down and really thinking about that, because that for me, I go, oh, yeah, there's some keywords that almost automatically pop up. So really interesting. I can't wait to really sit and do that. Top 10. Yeah.
Well, when you're doing that, also, we talked a little in the beginning about being proactive, and we can, we talk about the database, right? I mean, it's a very oversimplification of how the brain and the body work,
Right.
and all the energies and everything we don't even understand, right? But if we can proactively put data in, then it'll have a little something else to draw from. So, for example, when you have a moment of joy, savor that. Where do I feel that in my body?
Oh.
Let that be there for a while. Observe it.
Mm-hmm.
Joy, happiness, moments of where you can give yourself some kudos for something. You are amazing. Look what you did. Look what you did.
Do you ever do that? As human beings, I feel like we don't.
When I remember, I mean, how many, little kids need that. Look, sweetheart, you did your homework, or look at you brushed your teeth, or look at you. There's so much in life that comes along that is hard for us, that if we don't have some of this, quote, good feeling to balance it out, how are we supposed to be prepared for when that other stuff comes? We've got to make a conscious effort to bring ourselves up, our vibration up to a level that is more in line with who we really are, instead of just allowing and relaxing into, well, this is just the way I am, and this is just the way it goes, and blah, blah, blah. It takes effort. It takes some effort to go against what seems like against the grain of this default protection fear modulator. But we have the ability, we have the capacity, and we have two very important tools, and that is where we place our attention and our intention and how we relate to things. And so if you just take those two things and be aware of what you're doing with that, you can make a it can make a big difference.
Yes. I like the savoring the joy. Like that's really staying in my head. I'm thinking, all right, when I have those moments, I think, some people go, you just take a picture or whatever, whatever. There's different ways of doing it. But I'm like, I think I'm going to start going, okay, Amy, file that one in love, joy, whatever it goes under. But
See what it
put
feels
that
like in
in
your
there.
body.
Oh,
It,
yeah.
when we combine an experience in our head, Mary had a good birthday, and I'm so glad she's alive because she went through cancer or something, whatever. What does that feel like? How is
Mhm.
it? Does it feel expansive? Does it feel contracted? Does it feel spacious, open? Does it feel tingly? Where does it feel that way? Start to become aware of what the good feelings do in the body too, so that you can have that connection between the mind and body as the non-judgmental, compassionate observer, and you can be more of a modulator and a mediator and a loving caregiver and caretaker between this let me protect myself at all costs, you know, and have some joy and fun in life.
Yeah. That's so cool. There's a lot there. There's a lot of little things that I'm like, I know we've talked about some of this before, but just driving it back home again, I'm like, yes, I can't wait to like re-listen to this and edit it and go, oh, taking that one for myself.
Well, thanks for letting me ramble.
Oh my gosh, no, it's great. And as I'm going on this journey and I find these little things that I'm doing, I'm like, there are thousands of other people doing this exact same thing. So let me dive in and find out why we do this. Why do I continue to do this? What does this happen? What is this about? Yeah. And just identifying and sitting with whatever that is in the moment. Hello. I like how you also said, like, recognize that it's there. What are you here to teach me? What do I need to do for you? How can I help you?
After we have observed and been held the child who's afraid of the dark until and watch what happens to that emotion. Just
So
observe.
really, the moment is taking the breath, becoming like self-aware again, breathing in and breathing in, breathing out and breathing out, bringing yourself out of your head, and then being
Bring
compassionate to the self.
coming back to the body, because the body is the messenger. Most of the time we walk around living in our head
Mm-hmm.
or from our head, but the body really is the messenger. And if we can start to just learn the messages that instead of the concepts that the head wants to put on them, what feels good? What feels good? Not why does this feel good? That's a concept that the brain will take in and have to make it that again.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the pronoun thing. I use that too. When I can identify what the thought is, I will change it instead of you are or I am. I'll change it to she or Tracy.
Mm.
Tracy is not lovable, and when I hear that, I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
But if
Who
I
just said that?
if I just let it go through my head and ramble, and the head will find all reasons to prove it's true, because it's not that I don't love myself, it's that the brain wants me to make sure that I don't get too big for my britches or something, you know? It's crazy. But that these things are not true. And sometimes they are true. And if they are true, can we be present with that? I mean, it's a terrible thing to cut out any part of yourself. Self-love is means the garbage too. And it doesn't mean we have to like it, but we do have to be, I don't like it when the 2-year-old, with if my child is scary, I mean, is scared. I don't like it. It's loud. It's uncomfortable. I have to go to bed. It doesn't make sense. But do I want to abandon it and shut the door? I mean, if I do that, then I'm reinforcing this idea that I can't be present for myself, that I have to go out externally and find other people, places, and things to act a certain way so that I can be okay. And that is imprisonment.
Yes.
I want freedom.
I want freedom. Freedom. Not a song. Oh my gosh. Yes. God, I could listen to you talk all day. There's so much in this too. Like that's the thing. It's not just the negative self-talk. That's why I think it's a conversation that you could have and you could have it again because there are so many different pieces that you could spend a whole lot of time on just identifying and ways to do that one thing and then move to the next. And how could you do that? What does that feel like, look like? Because everybody is different. And some people are just coming to this. And so it's a whole new concept of even thinking about
Yeah,
becoming self aware and
right,
even just noticing when you're feeling out of whack.
right. The body is amazing. I'll do this. I don't know if it's metaphysical or what, but I mean, as a nurse, I've got a lot of good training in anatomy and physiology, right? I've got all that, but it's not enough for me because I want to know when I hurt my knee, not just was I being careful, was I not being careful? That's just all the amygdala brain data going, right? I want to know what the knee is responsible for bending and moving and propelling and pausing and getting ready to move forward. How does that relate in my life? Am I moving forward? Am I trying to move forward in a way that's too quick that I'm not ready for? Am I moving sideways when what's that message? I mean, I always think about what is the message here for me because I don't think that we just get hurt just for no reason or get sick for no reason. Or, I mean, I think there's messages here.
Absolutely. Yeah. I 100% believe that. Yes, there
Yes.
is a
And it's a hard
message
lesson
there.
because if you've got something that's cancer or something, you ask yourself, okay, what is this message? It's almost like, well, did I do this to myself? No, we don't have to put that blame or you wouldn't tell the child that they did that to themselves. They made themselves scared or they hurt themselves on purpose. It's just like, can we get this flow going between the mind and the body and the observer,
Mm.
the non-judgmental, self-compassionate observer that can kind of mediate these messages and stuff. It's fascinating to me. I mean, I'm brand new at all this. I mean, I wish I would have maybe I don't know, maybe lifetimes ago I did it or something. I don't know, but
Like
feels new to me.
why does it speak to me now? Absolutely. Well, and I listened to Huberman. Jimmy turned me on to a book, something about the brain and its beliefs or it changing its beliefs. I don't know, but it's very scientific and medical and all of that. But it always comes down to the power of the brain and thought. Like everything can change. You can change anything
We
in
don't even have to
your
die.
world, your body. You
We
can change it with the way you
we
think.
have yes, we don't have to have this experience that we're having because we're really we yes, our experience is that we are in this incarnation in this physical body. That's our experience right now. But this is really dreaming.
Mm, that's always crazy to think about, right?
Yeah, and we are really the bulk of us, the true nature of us is still in spirit energy form. And in that energy spirit form, we manipulate energies and magnetism and all things that I don't understand because I don't know physics, but we have that ability. And that whole idea, just the very basic idea that what we think we create, that's if that's not a reason to pay attention to that stuff.
Right? Yes. Yes. 100%. Yes. It, yeah, I'm just gonna leave it right there. Yes. Because I can think about like, my head has not been in a good space for a couple of years. And the reflection is the current state of my health, just like my mental state. It's like this slow decline. And I go, that's me doing that because I'm continuing to think on this thought where I used to always be like, everything is great. Everything's going to turn out. Everything falls in place for me.
Okay, so what you're doing is you're going back and forth from it's me and it's my fault. And if I just have the right attitude, it'll be okay. And that is not exactly right.
You're like, no, okay, good. Thank you for bringing that up.
I don't know all there is to know about this, but from a perspective that until we accept where we are and what is, we can't go from there because we aren't really going from anywhere to anywhere.
Wow.
But as long as we are not where we want to be, we continue to attract that I don't have what I need.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have what I if you can move into the space of this is I have everything I need.
Yeah.
All the time I have everything I need. I don't need to be anything different. I don't need to get anything. I don't need to add anything. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And that's very simplistic, but the more we can do that and practice that and really embody that and know what that feels like, that changes our vibration, and the vibration attraction is going to attract more of I'm okay. Now it makes no sense to the brain because the brain says, you mean you're okay being in debt? You're okay being sick? You're okay being a slob? That's the whole brain trying to help us, right?
Right.
And but the mediator or the higher self can come in and say, thank you so much for trying to help us. This is what you're meant to do. And if there's a threat, we really want you on board. So keep going. But for now, because I this body needs to feel safe, it needs to feel secure. I don't want to wait until something happens before I have a good life, before I'm happy. I want to feel it now because if I wait, if I have to wait for something to make me happy, then that means that I can't have that. That'll be I can't have that. I mean, that's the way our whole culture is, get on the TV, once you have the right this or you think the right way or you have
Body's this or you're yeah. Mm-hmm.
more positivity or something. Well, that's okay for trying to put input into the brain, but that's not okay for being present in reality in this moment.
Right.
This moment is all we have, and we create each moment as we go. So how do you want to feel in this moment? How do you want to feel? Feel that. And if you have to talk to the brain about it and say, well, I know you're trying to convince me. I know that you're trying to help me out by bringing up all these things that I haven't done yet. But I may not live to do all that stuff. And I don't want to wait until all that stuff happens to be okay. I don't want to have a positive attitude 24/7. That's beyond me.
Yeah. There's so much to it,
I know.
what I love about it.
I got to go like watch the Three Stooges for a minute or something because it's so heavy.
Oh my God.
In my body, the brain can't comprehend it and brain gets overloaded, but the body knows that I feel good about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, girl.
Thanks for coming on and talking and hanging out with me on a Saturday, Sunday morning, whatever this is.
Thanks for inviting me.
Always love picking your brain and talking with you.
It's been so fun.
All right. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you, Cassie.
Thanks. All right. That wraps up my conversation around negative self-talk with psychotherapist and my very dear friend, Tracy Brady. Thank you, Tracy, for coming on the podcast. As always, so grateful that we connected while I lived in Texas. And on that note, stay safe and stay curious, my friends. Oh, and if you want to join my health journey, or actually my 2024 best year ever journey, you could jump over to Facebook. It's a very private group. Not a lot of people are in there, and it really is meant to be a safe place to talk about all things health and wellness, physical, mental, any of that. I am sharing my journey openly and honestly. Sometimes I just write in there when I'm like, ugh. So join me. Pop over, go to Facebook, look for 2024 Best Year Ever. Fill out the little thing. I think you have to give your one word for this year. I'll see you in the group.